an adoption of the agenda, including the supplemental personnel report. And we did have a couple,
One addition and one deletion.
addition and a deletion that's there in your green folder.
I move the adoption.
Okay.
A second.
Have a motion by Barbara and a second by Tammy. All in favor? 6-0. All right. Recognition of visitors. Persons may present ideas or concerns regarding USD 443 schools. No action will be taken by the board at this meeting. Personalities and behavior of employees are not to be presented during this period, but are to be reported to the employer's immediate supervisor. The president shall determine the amount of time to be spent for citizen participation. If you'd like to address the board, you can approach the podium at this time. All right, we'll move on then. Next up, we have the consent agenda, which includes the approval of personnel, including the supplemental personnel report, approval of minutes for the June 12th Board of Education meeting, approval of the 2017-18 District Safety Handbook, approval of the Head Start, Early Head Start Ford County Cost of Living Adjustment, Bright Beginnings, approval of Kansas Parent Education Program, Bright Beginnings, and the approval of Early Learning Kansas Consolidated State Preschool Grant Application, Bright Beginnings. Bright Beginnings is keeping us busy tonight, so.
I make a motion for approval of consent agenda.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Tammy and a second by Tracy. All in favor? 6-0. All right, we're ready for new business. Curriculum and instruction, curriculum update.
Good evening, Madam President, board members, Superintendent Cunningham. Tammy and I are going to give you a brief overview of the district curriculum. When you talk about curriculum, there's many different aspects, and we'd love to spend the entire night with you and the next couple of days going over it with you if you'd like. But we do want to up front tell you if there's anything you want more detail on, we'd be happy to come back. We could bring specific people to address whatever questions you have in addition to us if necessary. But we'd be happy to go into a lot more detail on anything that you'd want more knowledge about. We can go ahead forward. Kansas came up with a definition that's critical. This is our ultimate outcome. What is a successful Kansas high school graduate? And you can see there, academic preparation, cognitive preparation, technical skills, employability skills, civic engagement to be successful in post-secondary education and the attainment of the industry recognized certification or workforce without the need for remediation. This is our target. This is what we're here for. Our curriculum and how we pursue those outcomes for our students comes in all these different content areas, as well as capacities, the ROSE capacities that are in the state statute, social emotional standards that have been required by statute also, and voted and selected by the State Board of Education. ELL standards, which are obviously so important to us, and then the multi-tiered support system, which is part of the KESA, to make sure that all those different curriculum aspects are supported at different levels depending on kid needs. In the Kansas Standards College and Career Readiness, it's Kansas College and Career Readiness Standards were prepared. They looked upon not just the academic preparation of the kid. The focus, which you'll hear Randy Watson talking about all the time, is they want to hear the whole kid, how we're developing the whole student. And so we do all of these different puzzle pieces come together, and our curriculum is beyond just the academic. It deals with the social emotional, the workforce development, the soft skills that you've heard about. In each of those those puzzles is what we are focusing on, and that's what KESA wants to hear from us as we go through our accreditation process. Looking at math right off the bat, we have key instructional shifts that occurred over the years in the development of the Kansas College and Career Readiness Standards. The major significant changes is we're going from narrow and moving to deeper lessons, concentrating on conceptual understanding versus just understanding a simple formula or recall type level. It does still require us to have the accuracy and calculation and helping kids to be able to have those basic skills in order to be able to take on the higher learning later under the rigor. Application, of course, everything is about applying it to real life situations to be able to be successful once they leave high school. When you look in the English language arts, the hallmarks for college and career readiness, they want to see the independence of the 4 C's. Can they comprehend complex text? Critique the craft used to create text, construct rich understanding of content, and convey multifaceted meaning. Moving on down, build strong content knowledge through research, respond to varying demands of audience, purpose, task, and discipline when they're writing, those sub skills there. And using technology and digital media strategically, and come to understand the perspectives of the culture, of other people's perspectives and cultures. Language arts is no longer just the language arts teacher's responsibility. The college and career readiness standards have actually been designed and built into other content areas such as social studies, science, technical subjects, especially at the high school level. But if you look, it breaks it down, English language arts standards, it's grades 6 through 12, but in those other ones, 6 through 12 at the high end, you see that they're actually written into those other subject areas. So teachers are now across different content areas responsible for language development. We have at the index at the back, there's links that you can go to and actually see all of these documents. You would be here literally all night for us just to go through page by page. But this is an example of what teachers look at. They go to the state website, they can pull up, this is ELA standards, you see the conceptual area on the left, and then it starts giving all of the different substandards, and then it gives the description of the skills that they have to teach. This is what the teachers go through, and they map out as they teach each day what standards they're going to address to make sure they cover each of these. This is one page of, I think it's 10th grade. Well, it has different, you can see the different grades there a little bit, but they will go through each of the skills looking at it for their grade level and break it down, and then they have to map it out over the days that they teach, roughly 168 days of contact with students, and they have to make sure they cover all those. Teachers have to also then make decisions on which ones need more weight, which ones do you spend longer time on to make sure that you have the mastery on. Some of these kids are very proficient in, and you can move very quickly over them. Other ones take multiple days. You can't just do everything in one lesson. Science standards come in a little bit different format. This is very similar also, K through 12. Tammy I'll let her discuss that a little bit with you.
All of our standards in the science area look very similar, and at the top it kind of gives them just that basic science standard piece. But then down at the bottom, it kind of gives that progression piece of it for the science teachers, and then at the elementary level for that homeroom teacher, because it focuses on the science standard, and then it goes also through and it connects it with different standards, so the ELA standard or the math standard that may also be addressed in that. And so although kind of complicated in look, the color coding really helps kind of cue into what it is. And again, science standard at the piece at the top, and then it's connected towards the bottom. So it's a lot of information, but it's very helpful. There's not much time to do things in isolation, so we have to do a lot of integration, and these standards are set up for us to do that very well.
At the secondary level, the integration is done by teams and then departments, middle school and high school level respectively. This is a sample of the Engage New York curriculum. You see this is 6th grade Engage New York. This is module, you'll move through the 6th grade you have the different modules they have to cover, 1 through 6. You have a timeline on the left. You have the number of instructional days that they've allocated. Teachers developed this. They have worked on it repeatedly over and over, fine-tuning it to try to get to be optimal, efficient, and try to ensure the mastery for students. You can ask a question?
Is this district or is this the state of Kansas?
This is district.
Okay.
Because we chose Engage New York. Engage New York comes from a national curriculum and the state doesn't break it down. It's just, it can be one of the approved tools. But then we had to customize it. So we went through and did research upon the Engage New York curriculum. We had to pick out what was the most essential, what was that we can deal with in our time frame that we deal with our kids, and then what can we actually try to attain mastery with our kids, because our kids are different than kids in New York, and they may match some schools in New York, but not all of them. So we had to customize all that to us. Sometimes you will hear Engage New York also called Eureka Math. They're the exact same programs on a national basis. Engage New York was customized for the state of New York, and Eureka Math is the national piece. Engage New York is open source, so it's free. And that's what we're using it. So it's free to use for anyone in the nation. This gives you a little bit more detail what teachers are breaking down to the lesson level. So you look at the 7th grade, Module 5. You see the major emphasis on the standards at the top, instructional days, mathematical practices. This is the detail that our teachers have developed. So when we're saying they're doing curriculum work and grade level meetings and things like that, that's what they're developing for math. Right now, the 8th grade is heavily involved in, this year was doing that for next year because they're going to start. The social, emotional, and character ed standards, SECD is the acronym that's been applied to it. You'll have a test on all the acronyms at the end of the presentation. The SECD, the standards are multiple pages again. So what I tried to do here is just show you the goals. The arrowed items are the goals that the standards are addressing. They have standards the same as what you saw in the first slide of the ELA. They're broken down the exact same way. It gives you the different areas, whether you're dealing with bullying or the interpersonal relationships. Those type of things are all broken down by standard for the teachers to address and work with. It is very heavily emphasis on the teacher as being the critical component of modeling and teaching the students, because they're the ones in front of those kids every day. The ROSE capacities, the ROSE standards, there's a total of 7. This document the state provided for us, it is a crosswalk and it shows how it's aligned and how it's brought into the different curriculum tools that we use. You can see the college and career readiness, employability skills, 21st century accreditation under the 5 R's, and MTSS alignment. And so when you look at the blue, that's the actual ROSE standard that we're addressing, and then those are the different curriculums areas that we will work with on them under. And so that crosswalk shows how they, even though it looks like it may be another thing added on, it's still integrated in what we do. And this, just 2 more of the ROSE standards. It's just to give you a quick look at it. 2 more. And then the last one. One of the other areas that we have to address is the individual plans of study required by all students. 8th through 12th are required, but they've encouraged districts to go down. And so we are 6 through 12. So we're a little ahead of the game because they're going to expand the state level 8 through 12 down to 6 through 12. But we went ahead, when we bought Career Cruising, we set it up for 6 through 12. And since part of our middle schools were doing it, we just went ahead and involved all the middle schools. The Career Cruising is our vendor. It's not required by the state, but it was one of the approved vendors. And so we're using Career Cruising. It is the repository for a lot of our student information. It has their resumes, their test results, their interest surveys, their aptitude tests, their sample interview notes that they put together, exploration and research of different career fields that they may be doing, their scheduling that they're going to do for their pathway at the high school. The high school is moving into the IPS pathways, where every student soon will have, when they enroll as a freshman, they will start selecting a pathway that they favor. It doesn't lock them in. We're not the old communist system from the you will be doctor, you will be farmer type. They have flexibility, but it gives them some, according to their interest, to help them understand what they need to take in order to obtain that goal. If they want to be a veterinarian, if they want to go into welding, if they want to go into the military, what are the best courses for them to look at taking and preparing them for their career? CTE and IPS are related. These are the state technical fields. This is what we prepare kids for. And this is you hear about the CTE teachers at the high school. They have to write their coursework and get approval and work with DC3 and other school entities for cooperating agreements. They have to get business partners. These are the areas that we work with for students to be able to gain employment and move after high school. As we move our 6 through 12 curriculum pathways, you're going to keep hearing more and more that the middle schools and the high school are trying to form pathways for our students, pathways based on their interest of where they want to be when they get out of high school, whether it's going to college for 4 years or more, going to a 2-year program, a 1-year program, a trade school, maybe going direct into work in some fields that qualify as the completer type. And even if they choose fields that don't qualify statistically, when we do our reports to the state and we get reports from the state that say they're completers, as long as we are preparing them for something they have an interest in, they have a passion in, and they feel they're prepared to enter that field, that's our goal. Because it's about every kid succeeding. And every kid will have a different definition of what success means to them. We are involved right now of building our course scheduling and our offering to try to make sure these pathways exist. 6 through 12, we're doing additional course offerings and doing some structure in our classes to be able to give the students more options as they move through those pathways towards graduation. You'll notice that it's STEM is STEAM because arts, the A, is part of the emphasis, and science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. It's a heavy emphasis of where we try to place a lot of our problem-based learning, our authentic learning opportunities that we do with kids. And many of the jobs, the vast majority of the open jobs of the future are sitting in the STEAM arena, especially when you look at the more technical areas. We're only filling about 5% of the openings right now. We're having to go outside and get foreign labor to come in and address those types of fields. So, and then again, also just emphasizing that we have been stressing authentic engagement. It's the kind of lessons that when you stop, kids go, oh, they want to keep going. And we want them to be real world applied. And it's not entertainment. There's a learning tied to that lesson, not that activity. It's not just for entertainment purposes. EL is the other area that we have. The state has actual standards that we have to teach. And our kids, every EL student that's identified for needing support receives instruction that is dovetailed into our regular instruction, but teachers have to present and make sure that those kids are being addressing those standards. The elementary level puts these underneath their regular standards in iTunes U, and it's they build it into FileMaker on the secondary level. This is a modified Venn diagram that I came up with just to kind of give you a look, see how it fits together. The college and career readiness standards by content area, by grade level, the big red triangle, touches the Rose capacities, which is your employability type concepts, standards, the social, emotional, and character development standards. That's how to interact with each other, how to be self-reliant, how to be able to take care of yourself and deal with other people respectfully. I put that at the bottom of the base because without that, it's hard to teach those other two things. And so kind of made that as more of a foundational prerequisite that if kids aren't ready to be in classrooms and they're not behaving and they're not able to interact and collaborate with other people, those other areas are going to be very hard to achieve. And then the center where we cross over, even though it looks like a small area, it's the target, it's the bullseye. That's our CTE pathways. That is the IPS pathways. CTE is no longer a separate course just for like the Future Farmer kids or the VOTEC type kids. That is, every kid is CTE now. Every kid is a pathway to wherever they want to be when they get out of high school, and that's our target zone. MTSS is the last piece. It's not really a curriculum area, but it addresses our curriculum. There's 3 tiers. Tier 1 is the 80%. That's the kids who are going to need some supports, accommodations, some interventions in the regular classroom to be able to be successful. You might do a little bit of extended time type things with them, those type of deals, but it's all done in the regular setting. The Tier 2 is those kids that are needing more than that. They need targeted assistance. They need actual more intervention with individuals or computer-assisted delivery that addresses specific skills that they're showing that they have holes in, or they lack comprehension in those areas and so we have to give them extra support. Tier 3 are the most severe kids that need even more support. And ideally you want these numbers to be about those percentages of your kids, that those lines can move. And right now, we are probably every line's a little bit further down. So we have larger percentages of our population in each of those levels. So it does require more resources. The top level means lower class student to teacher ratios when you're dealing. That's where we hire extra people to do these tutoring interventions or specific little electives that we work on those skills with those kids. So they are the Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention classes that we may offer, or after-school programs that we offer, et cetera. This part, there's a component on the bottom left 3 columns is part of our teacher evaluation system mandated by the state now. But there's what used to be called SGM, Student Growth Measures. The state changed them to SPM, Student Performance Measures. And what has happened is that every teacher, when they're evaluated now, has to achieve a student performance. They have to show growth with their kids. And so they're allowed to select, they have to have multiple measures. So they need at least 2. And they can pick more. Secondary, most of our teachers have 4 measures that they have chosen. And so they will work on and track kids to show, so they can relate to parents, so they can relate to administrators, they can relate to the students themselves and show them, look, when you came in, this is where you were. At the end of the year, this is where you were. Showing them the growth, showing them that they were making a significant impact on the learning of students. These are some of the examples that the state has approved for different assessments that can be used for student performance measures. You'll see that the bottom of, they say standards-based performance measures. Those are teacher developed, okay? And so a lot of them are teacher developed, but they had to work by content area and grade. So it's not individual teachers, it's each content area, whether it's music, PE, math, science, welding, they had to come together, all those teachers in that area by grade level, and agree what the performance measure was going to be. So this has given us an immense amount of information for us to be able to look at as time goes by, to be able to watch our kids and see, are we making a significant impact on our students? This is just some more default. You see, this is middle school level. Just as a sample, this is on the state website under the default student. They have the old one up there, growth measures, 2015-16, and performance measures. SPMs. This is a partial list of all the assessments that we do also. Above, a student performance measure, SPMs is in it, but if you look at all the other exams that we do, and this is not all-inclusive, but we do gather a lot of information on our students in order to make educational decisions.
I get to the fun pictures. A lot of what Dr. Fortmeyer shared, although specifically was 6 through 12, is applicable down to the elementary level, so I'm not going to go back over and repeat some of those pieces. I thought I would go in and just tell you a little bit about some of the specific curriculum pieces that we use at the elementary level. For reading, for K through 5, we do what is called guided reading, so we don't have the reading textbook like the Basil and a different story each week. We'll level our students where they're at, and we have a reading level that goes from A to Z, and the kids will read a running record and kind of level them, and so they spend part of their instructional time at their own specific reading level, and then they'll spend other parts of their instructional time at their grade level, so that they're getting instructions in both levels. At our primary level, we also have animated literacy. And animated literacy really focuses on learning the letters and the sounds and the phonics pieces. Every letter comes with a character and a hand movement to show. We know that young children especially do a lot of learning through movement, and so they might not remember A, but actress Annie or and they can do those. So, we use the animated literacy at the pre-K level also. We also use making meaning and being a writer, and those are components that we bring in. The making meaning takes a text and really give the children an opportunity to learn why do you think that is, and what do you think this means, and gives them a chance to talk about it instead of just reading it for a comprehension. They're reading it to kind of really start to think about the text. And then the being a writer is the main piece that we use for writing, and its focus is trying to get their thoughts on paper and giving them an opportunity to have an idea, to be able to get it down, and then be able to work through that writing process. In both ELA and math, we have the main core instructional curriculum pieces, but then we also have some supplemental pieces. These are both online. We use RAS Kids, and it goes, again, very specific to the level of the kids, and they're able to do some kind of fun game pieces that play into the area that they're at, focusing on vocabulary and things, but they can also pick up additional leveled readers, and kids can do this at school and at home. And then the state provides iStation reading to all the schools in Kansas, and it really focuses, you'll do a brief assessment, and then it kind of levels out where they're at. So then too, it's very individualized on the student and their skill base, and they set up, and it's more of an intervention piece, so it's not in place of an instruction. It's used to reinforce the instruction. And then some of the assessments that we use at the elementary level, Glenn listed earlier, but here are a few of them. I mentioned that in the guided reading, the kids use a running record, and we see what level they're at. We use specifically the next steps. We want to make sure that our kids aren't reading the same books that they're going to use their assessment piece from, so we kind of keep those sacred. So Johnny doesn't come up and like, oh, that's my favorite book, I've read it 10 times, and they pass that level even though that might not be the level they're at. Again, at the primary.
What's
Go ahead.
phonics?
Phonemic
Is
awareness.
that a mixed spelled phonic?
Phonemic awareness.
Phonemic, okay.
Yeah. So
What is that? I
at
mean,
the
I
primary,
understand it has to do with phonics.
yeah, and then that's exactly what it is. At the primary level, though, before they're readers, we're looking at to see if they're able to pick up on the phonics pieces. And so some of it's rhyming, some of it's blending. There's different levels of understanding how a word is put together, and that's what they use we use to measure to see if they're ready to be readers.
Pronounce that again.
Phonemic.
Phonemic.
Phonemic awareness. And then we also
Do
use.
people do that just to mess with us?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, really, just to flat mess with you?
Charge extra if you get big words.
Pardon?
You charge extra if you get big words.
Well, then we tell our kids how to say it, and then they get to go home and say, guess what I did today, Mommy? And then they say phonemic awareness assessment, and then it sounds really cool. No. And we also do concepts of prints, and that's something kind of, it's very basic, but it's really, really important. Do kids know that there's a cover, that there's a back, that you flip pages, that, you know, you look at a word and you read left to right, and those types of things. And then, of course, the HMH used to be SMI, and so that was listed on there earlier, so we're not throwing in extra assessments. But it was bought out by Houghton Mifflin, so they had to change the name. Same thing. And then in math, we use the end of the map assessments and the mid-map assessments, and then, of course, state assessments for 3 through 5. In math, we specifically use Engage New York. And Glenn mentioned this also, we go in and look at our state standards, and then we go in and we look at the curriculum. No different than what we would have done with the textbook of this one is not applicable to us, this lesson's more important than this lesson. So we've done the same types of things, and that's our main math curriculum. Like ELA, we have some supplemental pieces. Zern Math is a free online piece that allows it ties directly to the Engage New York or the Eureka Math, and so it will give them additional lessons with a person who'll go on, it's like a video, and it'll kind of go through the lesson again and then give the children an opportunity to practice online with something very similar to what they've done, which again is a great intervention piece. And also if kids miss, it's a really good reteaching. So teacher can go on, but they can get the lesson and can come back and support. We also use iStation Math. We do pay for this. This, again, is more of an intervention part. So very similar like the ELA, they'll do the assessment and then it levels them where they're at, and then they work on those skills. And the reporting on the iStation, both ELA and math, is really good for the teachers. It can go in and give them specific lessons to target on and see how the kids are doing. This is fairly new to us, and so we're kind of in the learning stages of how this program works. But the beginning information that we're starting to see has been really helpful.
So Tammy, didn't you say that the ELA iStation was free?
Yeah, the state pays for that and
But the
provides
math
it to all.
isn't
No, no. And Mr. Cunningham, iStation, this is only its second year. They had another program
They had
before.
a different product before that.
Yeah,
I think it's an opportunity for some, it's a good, both these products, the one we had previously and this one are both good products, but I think it's an opportunity for vendors to get their wares out there in front of people, and as long as the state's
Make us
willing to
like
pay
it.
for the ELA part, we'll let them and we'll use it, and at some
Yeah.
point, the state will say, oh, we're done with that, so if we want to continue it, we get to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And the good thing about the reporting on these is that you do get some valuable reporting information, so you know if your kids are making progress or not.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're making strong progress, then it might be something we're willing to pick up in the future. If we don't have proof of it, then we'll go look for something else.
yeah, yeah. And then I'm going to clip through these slides really quickly. All of our curriculum at the elementary level is housed in iTunes U, and that is managed by the instructional coaches. So up there, you'll kind of see that there's a second grade math, fifth grade math, third grade, all of the different math, science, and ELA is all in there, and it's assigned a course. So all of our elementary teachers, when they are hired, they get their courses assigned to them. So that's where all their curriculum is. And then, and I know you can't read that, but if they click into, if you go into ELA as an example, you can go in and then it'll show you, well, you can click your grade. And I clicked on third grade ELA, and then in it shows the different curriculum maps. They click the curriculum map, and it takes them into the specific lessons that they can click on. When they do that, it pulls this up. There they can click on the specific standard. Then it brings them down to the resources that they can use. And then as an example, if you click on one of the resources, this pulls up a phonics lesson, which then the other material that is provided is a Words Their Way, which is like a word sort and how to address those specific skills. So all of it is just at their fingertip. And they go into their subject, they click, and they have to click down to get what they want, but all of that is housed in there and managed again by the instructional coaches. And as standards shift, for example, math is changing. The math standards are coming in new this year, haven't been finally approved, but we expect that they will. And there are minor changes, but all of those changes will then be reflected in this piece.
If I might say, that's something different from the traditional teacher's guide we used to have. You had a set of resources, and those were on, if you use that for 6 or 7 years, like we use a math book for 6 or 7 years before we adopted another one, you had the same lessons, the same resources, the same whatever in that guide. This allows the flexibility for, as a teacher or an instructional coach or someone comes across an exceptional worksheet or an exceptional activity or a video or whatever they want to use to reinforce that content, that lesson, it gets plugged in right there and every teacher has access to it immediately.
Yeah.
So they can click on it and watch a KidTube video, or they can click on it and go to a worksheet, or they can click on it and go to an activity that kids can participate in. And those are updated as
Well, each year,
annually
yeah.
right now.
They'll add things throughout the year, but each year the coaches will go back over and click on things to make sure the links are still active links, because sometimes it'll be there and then it changes site or they've moved it. And that's going to be very frustrating for a teacher trying to plan to click on this link. Oh, it's not working. So they go and try to manage that annually. But as new resources come up or teachers share things in grade level meetings and those types of things, then we'll go in and we'll add that as like a supplement piece. Of course, we still have our core curriculum, but there's some neat things out there that are really good resources to enhance a lot of that, and so we keep that as up to date as we can.
It also shows if those resources are available for English language learners.
Yeah.
Or native English speakers, and you may have a whole different, it's a living document basically that provides a plethora of resources for whatever the individual student's needs are.
And we've embedded the EL standards in with all of them so that we're making sure that our English language learners, the teachers have those standards at the ready to make sure that they're embedding that in all the curricular areas.
And just to note, 6 through 12 is on the
FileMaker.
on the intranet page. Teachers would log in there, use Dropbox. Instead of clicking, they use Dropboxes to get to their curriculum. And that's by name. So they get set up, they go in, they pick their school, their name, their grade, they pick the course they're teaching, and the curriculum starts popping up just like you saw. But that's the way they do it at the secondary level. These are some of the links for you if you'd like to go out and just spend a few months exploring the different curriculum resources that the teachers actually use and the coaches use. This is what you would want to look at. And we will send you the PowerPoint. If you want it in paper, just let us know. We'll give you a paper copy. But this way you at your leisure can look at a little bit more in detail what we presented here tonight. If you have specific questions or additional questions that maybe we didn't even talk about, just feel free to let us know and we'll get the information for you.
Now, first of all, thank you. You did a great job explaining that. I understood about this much of it, and I didn't expect to understand more than, in fact, I may have understood more than I expected. But you know, I always think about that teacher in the classroom, and how intimidating is this when a young teacher walks in, and if I haven't been through an education program in college, but if I looked at that, I would just like.
It is not intimidating to young teachers
Okay.
because they do everything online. They're not from the textbook world. They go online, get their standard, probably do a Google search from there. It's more intimidating for our experienced teachers moving in, but that's one of the things that's part of our new teacher training. The instructional coaches go through this in depth. It's also something that the mentors follow up and support. So
Okay.
there is a lot of support for that.
That's one of my pet peeves, if I have a pet peeve, is that our mentors and our coaches have got to be at the top of their game. Because, I mean, how close is this to Common Core? I mean, how close is it?
Kansas College readiness standards are based on Common Core, but they've been customized to make sure
Okay.
all the complaints and things were not brought into the Kansas standards. They went through and said, what we need is this state. They did not adopt the national curriculum, but they are common core based in level of rigor and based on the focus on making sure that kids walk away with conceptual understanding of the curriculum, not just memory of certain parts of it. So that's the major emphasis, those focus points that I gave you at the very beginning, the math and ELA, hallmarks of ELA, and the focus points of math. That's the essential ingredients of what the Kansas Career Readiness Standards is separated from Common Core and emphasized from Common Core both. That's what they focused on.
Okay, because, I mean, it's like Alan said, they changed the names of things. I mean, when I came on the board, everything was West Ed. Then we went to Common Core, and now we're with the College and Career Readiness and different names for it. And to me, for a workforce, that's very, difficult to go through that. And from a board, I don't know, maybe there's smarter board, I know there are smarter board members out there than me. But to understand what's actually going on in the classroom is so difficult, and we have great confidence in you guys and our principals.
Teachers, Jeff, the College and Career Readiness is whole child development. It's not focused just on academics. It goes back to social, emotional, the soft skills for employment, so all those employability skills, the development of kids' interest and ability to pick where they want to go and know what's out there. So many kids have no goals, or they don't even understand what the opportunities are that exist for them. They go where they think their parents are telling them to go. Sometimes that's excellent advice, and sometimes it doesn't even match the kid. We're trying to let those students and parents have informed conversations and decisions on what's best for their child when that child exits high school. But it's a whole approach. So it is a little bit more demanding of teachers because now they are, but what we're trying to focus is how it can be integrated into that target zone and not have to be looked at as a separate plate that I got to prepare and balance and spin on the pole to keep alive in the classroom. We don't want them running down, spinning plates on poles, trying to keep them going. We want them to see, take the food off each of those plates, put it on one platter, and spin one platter on one pole. That's what we're trying to focus, and that's what that target zone is about.
Okay. I will say this, we had 2 high school teachers at Servitec talking about it, and we had an excellent day. We just had an excellent day, and they said the same things about the other businesses that they've been in. And I think this is probably the finest thing I have seen, having those teachers in, what, Jackie, 50 businesses? 80 businesses, to bring the community, I mean, into the educational system. So I applaud everything about that. I mean, just our rank and file employees got involved, and it wasn't just management, and it was just outstanding. And I hope they received as much from it as we did.
2 to 3 years, the high school's going to be blowing your minds on some of the things that they're going to do with pathways. And the middle schools are committed to following that, and they're doing some exciting things they're going to feed. They're going to be at a lesser level because the kids are younger and they don't have the business type of stuff, but there's going to be a whole bunch of that pathway 6 through 12. It's going to be very exciting for our students. It's going to rock your world too when you see what we're doing.
Well, I am excited about it. I just want to make sure that we give our teachers every support we possibly can to get this to where we need it to get. I mean, because we can all sit here at these meetings, but I say this about every other meeting, it's a teacher and a kid. That's where the rubber meets the road, and you guys have ingrained that in me. And so let's just make sure we give them every piece of support we can.
Last week, I had about 20-ish teachers came in, and they worked on ELA and math and science and social studies, and I actually ended up having more people asking, hey, can I come, than what I had originally, like, oh, gosh, it's 4 days, I don't want to really bother you. And then over half of those have asked, oh, can we be on the committee too, ...
Right.
And so it's hard work, but they're very passionate about it and they love it. And it inspires me. And I mean, it just gets me all excited about the venture that will go on, watching them work so hard and think things through and apply and then use examples back to their own classrooms and kids and stuff. It's neat to see.
Were we on year 0 last year? And so,
Yeah.
Okay, on KISA. Okay.
So next year will be year 1, and we'll start to set, we've done some of the preliminary work, and we'll come in and set district goals, and then that's the move forward, and it'll be a 5-year process.
So many schools are on year 1, there's a potential chance.
Yeah.
to come and ask Fred to move us up, so that'll, he'll have that discussion with
Okay.
everybody and see if that's something we want to do or not, but there's a checklist that you kind of see what you've completed. They have so many people that are going into year 1 from year 0. They cannot manage everybody at that one level. So they're trying to get some people to have, hey, you're further on than you really are. Let's look at what, and give yourself more credit than you are and move yourselves up. So the potential could move up.
Are there any other questions?
Obviously not for this meeting, but I'd be interested to see what the data shows on the Engage New York math.
Okay.
Especially for those kids that started in kindergarten with it and where they're at now and how that compares with other students nationwide and how that program's going.
Sure. Sure.
Very good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the teacher mentor program.
Yeah. This will be super brief. I just wanted to touch base with you. We had mentioned 1 or 2 times ago, I don't know, that we had new mentor rules, and there's just a few pieces that are in addition to what we've already done. We had already had multiple years of support for our teachers, and we had already done some of the things above what the state had required anyway. And so this adjustment's been pretty simple for us. First of all, we have 3 mentor chairs. Maria Ortiz-Smith does the elementary, Robin Adams does the middle school, and Amy Herder does the high school. And then with that, we have a mentor handbook that is general for all of our grade levels, but each month our mentors have checklists that they have to work with their mentees on, and those are specific to grade levels. So we have separate checklists for the elementary, for the middle school, and for the high school to be very specific to their needs. Part of the new pieces that they asked us to do is to create a mentor pool, and we kind of do this in general. Every principal knows that as they bring in new people, what grade level or what content area they are, and then they try to match them with a person that they think would be able to really support them. And so one of the things that we now have to do is go in and put those names. Instead of having the list in our head, we'll have a formal list, and they have to at least have worked on under their certification for 3 years. And that's one of the minimum mentor requirements. And so we'll keep that list, and we'll update that each spring as teachers either resign or retire and shift out or even change content areas. And we hire new, and that kind of that shift through, we'll update that. We also created a needs assessment, and that's in your board packet. We try to keep that pretty general, and again, so that we can apply that to every grade level. And they'll do it at the beginning when they're hired, and then we'll follow back up and do it again with them in December and then in the spring, and to kind of see how they're doing and growing. And from that needs assessment, then we'll set goals that the mentors and principals, depending on the level, will get involved with and support the new teacher, and really try to make sure that they have that support that they need. And then we have always had at least a 2-year mentor program, so we have the formal one for the first year, and then we loosen it up a little bit, but have that second-year support to make sure that they have some of those follow-up pieces to meet their licensure, but also just that contact go-to person. And the state now requires, it just says multiple years. So we've always done 2, but if we have a teacher that is new and really needs some additional support, we can add additional years of mentorship depending on the need. So I think that pretty much sums up the new pieces of the mentor program. Do you guys have any questions?
How do we ensure that that relationship is beneficial for the mentee and that things are getting done like they're supposed to?
Yeah. Well, there are monthly checklists, and so the facilitators are supposed to be going in and checking to make sure that the mentee mentor checklist has been submitted. At the beginning of the year, they're following up with the mentees on they have 3 or 4 after-school sessions, and then at the elementary level, I'll talk specifically, and you can jump in at the secondary. At the elementary level, then on Friday mornings, coaches are going around and touching base with their new teachers at that specific grade level. And so there's a lot of that in there. And then principals have different involvement levels. And so some are really checking in and, hey, how are things going? And some are more hands-off. With the new piece, we're going to try to encourage, and I'm going to bring it into our elementary principal meetings quarterly just to say, hey, have you checked in? How's it going? That kind of stuff. And so that way we're trying to keep that mentor process streamlined. But that's kind of the overall of what's supposed to go on.
At the secondary level, we, again, it varies a little bit by the administrators that are assigned to those new teachers, but we will be increasing the accountability with administration. We've had a few times where mentors have not maintained the relationship at the level we desire. It is getting harder due to teacher shortages and the turnover that we have to identify and find mentors that are qualified to be mentors and are the right personality to match sometimes with the teacher. We are having to use mentors multiple times. So every mentor does not just have one new teacher with them. Sometimes they may be doing 2, 3, even 4 that they're mentoring. So we want to make sure that we're monitoring the capacity of that person as well as making sure that the new teachers get everything. Part that's not on this program, Dr. Nance in HR is involved in this process as well. One of the things that she started this year was the new teacher recruiting and retention committee and program. And part of that is going to be also to make sure that there's another vehicle of communication where a teacher can say, hey, I'm really needing this, or I'd like to have more of this, or I'd like to be with that person, or those type of conversations that we can try to facilitate. Because it's all about relationships, really, and trying to make sure that they're with somebody that they can get the information they need, and we want them to stay, and that primarily, and then we also need them to be effective. So those two things are relationship-based. And so Dr. Nance has, from the HR point of view, she's part of this process and will be working to help make sure that accountability of communication is taking place. This is for licensed teachers, this procedure set up by the state. Just as a footnote, we do mentor our long-term subs that come into the building, and even the student teachers that are going to take over mid-contract, we bring in and we mentor. So they're getting that training and that mentorship just like any other new teacher that's licensed coming in, because we want to make sure they know what they're doing and delivering to kids properly in the classroom. So that's a little bit of a footnote.
I think that's great. I think Dr. Nance has mentioned how that piece of the mentor is appealing to new hires or people that are looking at us, and I think it's important that we follow through with the level that you were saying, to really give them that support that they need as they get started.
In comparison, I haven't been around the state. Dodge's mentor program and the instructional coach program is at the top level in comparison to other districts state. This is something we can really sell, and we do sell, and the teachers do recognize that when they learn about it. It becomes a tremendous asset for them to become part of our district.
Great.
Very
All right.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have the approval of the Compass Systems Care Grant participation. I think you're back up, Dr. Fortmeyer. Maybe you should just move your chair over there.
I feel like Bill tonight. The Compass Systems Care Grant is a grant that is going to Compass Behavioral Health, but it's going to support our students. I got to fill in for the meeting with a coalition of superintendents for Mr. Cunningham in December, and it was shared by all the superintendents that were there that the number one concern in the state right now as far as health needs are mental health needs, behavioral health needs in students, particularly the younger students coming into the districts. The resources are just overstressed, and it's hard to get them timely interventions when we need them to help these students be successful in school. This grant pays for case managers to start providing services to our students much earlier than what the traditional referral process allowed and the manpower and the money covered. So this is a highly valuable grant for our students. What it requires from us is that our teachers fill out a 15-minute survey 3 times a year on their class. It's a checklist. It's very quick. It takes 15 minutes for the whole class to be done, not per student, the whole class. It's just really, they just flag any student they feel like might need an intervention. Then those forms are discussed, those kids that are flagged are discussed in our normal student improvement team meetings, and they talk about and say, are we seeing a pattern? Is this kid someone we think should have an intervention? And if they do, we make contact with the parent, discuss our concerns and why we feel like interventions might be beneficial, and explain to them that this can be provided to them at no cost to them. And so if they would agree, they sign off on a permission slip. That then gets referred to Compass Behavioral Health, and they take over at that point. They will do all the communications with the family. They do the communications with the student. They meet with the student. They do all the interventions. They document the interventions. They document progress. The documentation is available to us for educational decision-making for future decisions. And if the situation is showing to be more of a disability, requiring a 504 intervention or maybe special ed, that documentation's already there and is available to us for those type of decisions. It is a faster process because it identifies the kids so quickly compared to sitting where they might be in classes for many times, going to these sit meetings, going back and forth through a normal process where we're trying interventions in the classroom to see if they work. Every 3 to 6 weeks, we change the intervention, we try another one, and then if it doesn't work, then we seek help. This way, they have support, because right now, they haven't had the money to come in any faster than that. Now they will be able to intervene earlier. So we are asking the board for approval for us to participate with Compass Behavioral Health on this and do the surveys and conduct the initial contact to the parents to get the permission, and then from that point, they take over. We feel it would be highly beneficial for our students.
Great.
How many young people will we send to them in a year's time ballpark?
Wow, that's a hard estimate. We created the Lariat Way program to address these students, and we were at 20 kids basically in K-8, and there are other students that can benefit from this. And what we're trying to do, these interventions would prevent those kids from having to come out of the classrooms and go to Lariat Way or go into TEC or special ed rooms if they can do some of this early. The younger children, the pre-K and the kindergarten, if those interventions can be made at that level, they're not losing instructional time. It's all about keeping them with us and keeping them on grade level. I can imagine, the principals can probably give a better estimate, but I bet you they can think of 3 kids right off the bat at every elementary that says, yeah, we can do an intervention right now. And so we're hoping that by screening in the first week of October, the second week of January, and then in May, after assessments are over, that we can identify some kids that need some help. And May is even valuable because they can do these interventions with these kids over the summer, and they're ready to go with 3 months of, or 2 months of interventions when August starts again, when school starts.
It's important to know that this is not just something that happens at school
Right.
with the kids. It actually intervenes with the families as well to help give them the tools they need to help their child be more successful.
There's a lot of after-school meeting with the child and go to Compass, or they actually will go to the house if need be.
Sounds good.
And you're comfortable with Compass? I mean, as
Oh.
a district, we're comfortable.
We are working with them in so many different situations, in special ed, in the Lariat Way program, and then with kids that are independently doing sources, but they have behavior plans in our schools. And so we're working with them, with those students, with parent permission already. So we're very closely interrelated with them in many ways, but it's always driven by parent permission. But once that's there, yeah, we're doing extensive work with Compass, and they've been very good with us.
Very good. I would make a motion to approve the district participation in the Compass Behavioral Health Systems Care Grant for the 2017-18 school year.
One second.
Right, we have a motion by Jeff and a second by Tracy. All in favor? 6-0.
Thank you.
We got wrestling coaches
You're
next.
still,
What's that?
Wrestling coaches next.
We'll wear you out.
Well, all those kids that don't behave, they wrestle. No, that's
Not a bad idea.
get that energy out. The wrestling programs at the middle school have been extremely successful, and the kids have expanded now. We're exceeding 50 kids in both programs as wrestlers. They expect it to continue to rise. The numbers of the kids have made it where they have to divide practice areas in order to be able to work with the kids. This, of course, needs greater number of adults because you're actually physically in a different space. Also, the number of kids make it hard for a coach to give individual attention and working with kids on their skills, both for safety and for to monitor it, because wrestling, you can dislocate a shoulder, a knee, or an elbow in a heartbeat. So you have to be watching these kids pretty closely and making sure they're using proper technique. A lot of kids, especially when at middle school level, when they start wrestling, if they haven't been in the city wrestling programs, they think wrestling is WWE off TV, and so it's just short of throwing chairs at each other when you first get kids going. So you do need a very significant amount of monitoring and training with these kids. Currently, the coaches have been voluntarily reducing their pay in order to reallocate portions of their pay to pay for a third assistant coach. What we're asking is that we'd like to, that's been a prior practice that many of our teams have done, not just in wrestling, but in other sports too. But in this situation, due to the numbers, we'd like to say if the programs have 50 kids or more, that they would be allowed to hire an assistant coach to help with that instruction and safety monitoring, and not have to take it from the other coaches' salaries to pay for that. We'd like to just create those new positions based on a minimum threshold of 50 athletes participating in either program. And it would be a coach for each program if they meet that threshold. Yes.
And how long does the hiring period last? Then just for that
That single season.
season?
They can pretty much tell how many are coming in. They do visits with the grades coming up and ask how many are interested. They do, and they have camps and things that they do, so they can see those numbers in advance. And they're very comfortable that this is going to be a secure position. So I would encourage you to understand that this vote will mean a permanent position because we're going to have the numbers. They're there.
How long is the season? Excuse me.
Remember,
Winter to early spring, it's about a 3-month run, I guess. Yeah, it starts, December and goes to like February. So,
the total cost for both two positions,
It's shorter?
including all fixed costs and everything
Oh,
associated
okay.
with it, is less than $5,500.
Yeah, this is a
Yeah, it's-
no-brainer for me.
Yeah, it's kind of.
Okay, so maybe
You're done.
November
I'll make a
through.
motion.
All right,
I
good.
don't get paid enough anyways.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the third assistant coach for the wrestling programs that they meet the criteria.
I'll second. Go ahead.
Motion by Jeff and a second by Brian. All in favor? 6-0.
Thank
Now
you.
you can sit down. All right, your turn, Ray.
Good evening, board members, Mr. Cunningham. On page 26, the first item I have to ask your permission to do is, on page 26, SmartNet. SmartNet means insurance. And I listed the items that we're trying to insure, wireless controllers. If I'm down one night or one day with a wireless controller and people can't access the wireless network, then I need to activate my trip to Mexico and stuff.
Too much.
I'm saying that because that's the standard we have here. We're not down. In 8 years, I think, I've been here 11 years. The first 2 years we had problems, right?
Yep.
And then after that, we have not been down. But it's come close. For example, last night, we were till 10:30 at night. Cox went down, but somewhere offside. It wasn't our equipment or in our district. And we caught that, so by 10:30, we were up and running. So that's a standard we've set. We have not been down unless we announced it to take the fiber down for repair, and we tried to always do that after school and stuff like that. So the wireless controllers, they handle the wireless access points to all the iPads and stuff. ASA appliances, these are appliances that sit there and protect our network inside the district from intrusion. Okay? And everything that comes in and out of the district has to flow through and filter through those devices. We can't afford to do without them. If one goes down, you can see there's 2 items there for each. So we can go a day on one item, and then we can put in a call to Cisco and they would send us a new one overnight, but then it has to be installed and configured. So we're looking at some time passing by. The switches, that's the core switch I asked you for permission here just a few months ago, where Cox comes in and then the network is distributed out. So the insurance for those items to replace them overnight is a total of $23,534.65. We're following business office procedures to come forward with this proposal, so we're asking for approval.
Just out of curiosity, what's the cost of one of those?
Each one of those items you're looking at, the core switch was $64,000, remember? The wireless controllers, when we bought them new, were about $45,000 each. The ASA appliances, I don't remember, around $15,000 each.
Okay. Okay, so I make a motion for approval for the SmartNet renewals.
Second,
We
excuse
have
me.
a motion by Tammy and a second by Barbara. All in favor? 6-0.
The next item for approval is smart board purchases for new construction. If you've taken a tour, you know what the smart board includes. Have you seen them out there? They have a projector, they have a speaker system. The teacher puts their laptop on. They can do lessons on the interactive lessons, drag triangles around, stuff like that. This specialized software and those things include things like they can record a lesson and put it on the kid's iPad to take home with them if they so choose. The standard was set when we talked the last 2 years about The new classrooms, we set certain standards, 11 network drops, an access point in every classroom, the phone line, IP phone, and a smart board at the K-8 classroom, any new classroom at all. Doesn't matter if it's kindergarten or whatever. And this proposal here is for Miller, and we're asking you, it came a little bit quicker. I think the classrooms were done a little bit earlier, right?
They're ahead of schedule.
They're ahead of schedule.
For new, the money comes from new construction. If we get your approval, then we can act and have them installed and ready to go by the first day of school.
So these are for Miller, and so you'll come when the other schools,
The other campuses, we bought one or two here and there
okay.
already as we could, as we
Okay.
needed to. This was over $20,000, and according to what Mr. Hammond told me, we have to take this to the board.
Well, I mean, but in the process of construction, I mean, I'm just curious why, I know this is over a $20,000 purchase, but it's part of the construction and why it has to be brought to the board and not just part of the construction.
We actually went out for bids on these.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
This actually beat the state contract. We got a bid that was lower than the state contract.
what Mr. Hammond is always trying to do is make sure we have the best price. And we compare state contract, and a lot of times the state contract is is a little bit confusing. This is a company we've bought many from before, and they're actually cheap. We go on state contract, this would be a substantial higher number. We go out for bids or quotes, and since we've done a lot of business with them, that's the best price. We usually check 2 or 3 vendors.
I think to answer your question, I think anytime we spend over $20,000, it's just a good idea for the board to know about it.
Okay.
Even though it's included in the construction, that FF&E, that furnishings, fixtures, and equipment, it's included in that part of the bond money already. But to spend it like anything else, to pay the bill, you guys approved to pay the bill to Hutton every month, just in your regular bills. This is very similar to that.
Okay.
Disclosure, open records.
Absolutely.
Everybody knows what it is we're doing.
Absolutely.
And we won't buy them before we need them. We're not going to put them in every classroom that we don't already have kids going into.
Okay, so I make a motion for approval for the smart boards.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Tammy and a second by Brian. All in favor? 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ray. All right, Human Resources.
Good evening, Madam President, Board of Education, Superintendent Cunningham. Tonight on the agenda, excuse me, I have the pleasure of talking about the negotiated agreement. And Paul, I'm going to list some things, and if you see something I missed, please don't hesitate to chime in and let me know. We had a very successful negotiation season this year, very good group to work with, and I think we came up with some very attractive things to add to the negotiated agreement. The first item being recommended is a $1,500 raise to each teacher salary and 3% added to the special salaries base. And what that 3% special salaries base means is that is where we calculate our daily rate for our long-term subs that serve in the district over 60 days. And you know that we will have some of those. We've talked about that. And so we know that we'll have some of those in place next year. And then it is also the factor that is used as the base for determining how much we pay club sponsors, coaches, different things like that. That is all factored off of that special base salary. It's the first time in a few years that that's been raised. So that seemed like it was time to do that as well. The second item was the stipulation that we get a little bit more structured in the plan time that we are, excuse me, arranging for teachers. And in order for them to have the most effective time available, that we came to an agreement that we not have any teacher's plan time be less than 20 minutes. It can be broken up into 20-minute segments, but no segments less than 20 minutes. The third thing contained in this year's negotiations for the 2017-18 school year has to do with treating in sick days for personal days. If a teacher has 1 to 5 years of service in the district, they automatically get 2 personal leave days. That's true for everyone right now. What we're asking is that in addition to those 2 personal leave days, that if you have 6 to 10 years, so once you pass that 5-year mark, you already have your 2 personal leave days that everyone gets, you have an opportunity to take 1 sick day and make it a personal day. So 1 for those that are in the 6 to 10 year mark, 2 for those in the 11 to 15 year category, 3 for those in the 16 and over. So you get your 2 personal days and then 3 additional sick leave days converted to personal if you wish to do that. One thing I would like to point out is that we also stipulated that the district pays for personal leave days at the end of the year, but you would only be allowed to be paid for your original 2, not the ones that you were able to convert. So there's no additional cost to the district associated with that. The fourth thing contained in the negotiated agreement was that normal call-in movement will remain in place for the coming year. And that just means that the same rules apply for moving from a bachelor to a bachelor plus 15, a bachelor's plus 30, to a master's. Same process that we've done in the past, and that be allowed to remain in place for the coming year. Finally, it was agreed that a committee will be formed to review the teacher evaluation process and forms during the coming year. Paul, is there anything that you would like to add to that? Did that get it all? Okay, great. So do we have any questions about the agreement? Yes.
What kind of effect do you think these kind of changes will have on recruitment?
Well, I am extremely excited about the first item, the $1,500 raise to all teachers, because that means that when I'm out recruiting next spring, or even right now, I mean, I just this evening got a lead on another teacher, and I'm so excited, and I can't wait to finish tonight and see if you approve the raises, because I want to put that number out there. When you are recruiting and you can say your beginning teacher makes $40,200, that is impressive, and that catches people's attention. And then, like we've talked many times, and you heard again tonight, you add on top of that the support that you get from the mentors and the instructional coach and the technology available and the professional development available. I saw it this morning in a teacher interview. This was a teacher with 3 years experience. When you talk about those things, her eyes light up because she's coming from a district that did not have those resources. It's a big deal. It is a big deal and a big drawing card to be able to do this. And somehow going from $38,700, which is a nice salary, and bumping that to $40,200, it sounds huge. Mm-hmm. And it is, $1,500. You see that in your paycheck at the end of the month.
Well, I appreciate all the work that both parties did to make this happen, and I'm excited about it too, to be able to do that. So.
And I would just like to say, Paul, thank you, you and your committee. And
Absolutely.
It's phenomenal on June 26th to be ratifying this agreement.
Yeah.
So thank you and the people that work with you very much.
A very good group of people to work with.
Great.
And I would make a motion that we ratify the 2017-2018 negotiated agreement with the Dodge City NEA.
A second.
Okay, motion by Jeff and a second by Tracy. All in favor? 6-0.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
The second item on the agenda for me tonight is approval of classified and exempt salaries for 2017-18. As you know, these are not negotiated salaries in the sense of the teacher salaries are, but what we did was try to be fair in treatment of these categories of employees. And we took the same sort of 3% money that was allocated to the teacher salaries that resulted in that $1,500 per person raise, took the same 3% concept and put that new money and put it out there available to add to the classified salary chart into the exempt chart as well. And we distributed that out in some ways that the board has directed us in the past that they like to do that. So we use pretty much the same process as we have in the past. I think that's the only thing that I have to add on that. It varies by level. If you know about that chart, you know how it works. It is a very generous amount that will be realized and appreciated by classified and exempt folks. So I would ask that you consider approving that portion of the raise plan for 2017, 2018 as well.
I might just mention for some of you who maybe haven't been up on it, the same thing's being done for the exempt, which includes administrative staff, that was done for the teachers. It's an across-the-board same amount for everybody. It's not a percentage of their current salary. It's a flat dollar amount, just like it was done for the teachers. And it's based on the daily rate that the teachers get for a 180-day contract compared to the contract length for these other employees. Okay?
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendations for classified exempt and administrative salaries for the 17-18 school year.
A second.
We have a motion by Tracy and a second by Tammy. All in favor? 6-0.
Okay, thank you so much. The final thing that I have on the agenda to talk to you about tonight is the change to the classified employee handbook. And I know that that was recently on the agenda for approval. One extra thing that we would like to address with you tonight is the potential to add some additional personal days for the classified staff to have available to them. What we are recommending tonight is that the two categories of classified staff that we want to add days to are the full year staff that are employed around the calendar year, and then the school year staff that are employed just during the school year. In both of those categories, we would like to give them 3 additional personal leave days paid by
It's
the
not
district.
personal leave days.
I'm
Paid-
sorry.
Paid holidays.
Paid days off, paid days off.
Paid holidays.
Yeah, let's make sure we get that right in the transcript. They're paid holidays. 2 of those will be used at Christmas/Thanksgiving/New Year's. That time in there, they have the flexibility to work that out with their supervisor and how to take those days. The third day, the final day, would be available to them at spring break. So 2 at the holidays, 1 at spring break.
For
Or
the
paid
cal-
holidays.
Where the calendars recently have gone to an extended Christmas break for students and teachers. A lot of our staff, if they wanted to be gone any more than just 2 or 3 days over that 2-week period, they either took time off without pay or they had to work. And when the schools are not open and teachers are not there and administrators in many cases aren't available, there was either not stuff for them to do or not supervision. And many of them wanted to take some more time off with their family because their family's home. So this was a nice way to honor those folks for the work they do for us by extending them a couple extra, in this case, 3 extra paid vacation days or paid holidays during the school year.
I think it's great.
Okay.
Questions on that proposal?
Okay, so I'll make a motion for approval for extra days for the classified.
Second.
Right, motion by Tammy and a second by Brian. All in favor? 6-0.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ramona.
Thank you.
All right, are you going to cover?
I'll do Bill's real quick. He's on his way back from a out-of-town appointment. A couple quick things. The first one is graduation ceremony agreement with Venue Works out at the United Wireless Arena. We've got a contract so we can have graduation there again this coming spring. So you can have graduation there this coming spring.
You're not going to come?
But ask your approval for the contract with Venue Works for 2018 graduation.
I would make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Jeff and a second by Tracy. All in favor? 6-0.
We've about outgrown that.
Pardon me?
We're about to outgrow that. No, that means we have more kids graduating, so it's a good thing.
Yeah, it was-
But where do we go from there?
Come on now.
Back
He's
to the
like,
football stadium, right, Ms. Price?
No.
Graduate in shifts.
I agree.
A through L.
For those who graduate in December.
Yeah, we could do it by departments like they do in college, like different colleges, yeah. The second one's very similar. We also have an agreement for the Tournament of Champions to be held at United Wireless Arena again this coming January, so would ask your approval for that. There is built into this, I believe, a multi-year agreement that does increase the cost by 5% per year. It's still very, very reasonable. And that is the only portion of the contract that the board picks up is the cost for the rental of the facility. The rest of the expenses for the tournament are covered by their own revenues.
I think I understand it, but it's just weird, the rental amounts, $5,900 for 2 hours, or, excuse me, an hour and 15 minutes, Jackie. And then, what, $3,150 if I'm looking right? For 3 days?
We do a significant amount of our own setup and tear down during the TOC than we do at the graduation.
We walk in and we walk out.
Yeah, we don't do anything.
For
except-
$2,000, I'll be in.
Yeah, no kidding.
Best money we've ever spent.
Yeah.
It's actually less money, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's actually less money than the last year.
We were at the foot,
Graduation at the.
right, football stadium. It is
By the time
less
you get
money.
sound and everything else.
Okay.
Wow.
Custodial, maintenance, clean up, set up, yeah.
Wow.
wow. Well, I make a motion for approval.
I second.
Motion by Tammy and a second by Barbara. All in favor? 6-0.
The next one is approval of continuation of our workers' compensation insurance program. It has been reviewed and recommended. Actually, we have increased employees and increased exposure, but our premium actually went down. I think it's $8,000 or something this year. So we appreciate our agent working with us to make that happen. Trying to find the exact amount it went down.
It's around 8,000.
Was it eight? Yeah, right at $8,000. So would recommend that you approve another year with workers' compensation insurance managed by the Fee Insurance Group through United Wisconsin Insurance Agency.
We need to enjoy this because our loss ratio last year
Went up.
was 110%, and it's not reflected in the experience mod. So let's enjoy this.
Do I
Make
hear
a
that as a motion? Yeah.
I would make a motion that we accept the workers' compensation insurance bid.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a motion by Jeff and a second by Brian. All in favor? 6-0.
The next one is just to authorize the clerk of the board, in this case, Mr. Hammond, to pay any bills that the board might incur from the current fiscal year between now and the July board meeting, so we don't incur any late payment penalties. And our vendors are not held waiting until after a July 10th board meeting. So this would just give him permission to go ahead and pay those bills, bring them back to you then at the July meeting.
I make a motion for approval.
Second.
Motion by Tammy and a second by Barbara. All in favor? 6-0.
The last item is the approval of the fiber lease. Many years ago, I was integral in the adoption or the implementation of fiber networking around the district. At that time, I don't even remember the name of the company that was here. One of our many electric company owners that have been here over the last 20 or 30 years. And we actually put a fiber loop around the community and began to connect our schools to that towards the purpose of building a high-speed network in the district. That fiber has proved beneficial not only to the schools, but also other businesses and entities in the community. Currently extends out to the Willrose Gardens area and around the outskirts of the community as well as inside. And we originally had a 10-year lease, renewed that for another 10 years, and now it's time to renew it again for another 10 years. So would ask your approval for renewal of the 10-year lease for the fiber network. And this is through, I believe it's through United, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, United.
Right. And even though the cost of $63,000 sounds a lot, our E-rate qualifies us to get a is it 90% reimbursement? 86% reimbursement of that cost back to the district. So it's a very, very inexpensive information superhighway for our students and staff. I'm going to ask your approval.
I move the approval.
A second.
We've got a motion by Barbara and a second by Tammy. All in favor? 6-0.
Okay, now it's down to my part. Just for your reading pleasure, it is the time of year again where KASB sends out recommendations for upgrades to Board of Education policies that reflect recent legislation or other court rulings in other parts of the country. This year, it's on page 52 through 64. They are relatively few in number, excuse me. I think it's 64. 52 to 64, excuse me. There are 5 recommendations for revised policy language and 1 for a completely new policy that has to do with federal compliance. Policy itself is relatively short, but the procedures to implement it were about 25 pages long. So I passed those by the business office, our accountants, and those kind of people to make sure we're in compliance with that. The rest of them are just revisions with current policy language that reflects changes in everything from the food and nutrition guidelines from the United States Department of Ag down to revised language that we came up with in the district on how we deal with truancies, excused and unexcused absences. So I would ask you just to read those. The changes are all highlighted in red. Ask you to read them, and if you have any questions, call somebody. I'm sorry. First they give me a call, but I've changed my phone number, and I'm not telling anybody what it is. Anyway, if there are, I said that for so many years, I started to do it again. Anyway, don't think there's anything controversial about any of these. We've reviewed them at the administrative cabinet level already. They've been through KASB attorneys, with the exception of the ones that are just ours here locally. But would encourage you to read them between now and the July 10th board meeting date, at which time they'll be back on the agenda for your approval. Okay?
Have the federal nutrition rules changed any at all?
Oh, just the guidelines. There's something, I don't know if it's rules or guidelines. They have different words for
Right,
different
right,
things.
yeah.
But there's more and more stuff all the time.
Yeah.
It actually is loosened up some, but there's still the thing about vending machines now, which
Right, that's what I was looking at.
that you can't even advertise now on a vending machine, anything other than what's in the machine. You can't use it to promote, even if it's full of, if it has Pepsi on the outside, it's got to have Pepsi on the inside. Well, you can't have Pepsi on the inside because it's not on the rule, not one of the rules. So you can't have a Pepsi display machine, even if it does have healthy ingredients inside it. Anyway, it's keeping somebody in Washington in a job.
Yeah.
Is what I think it's
There you go.
doing, so. Would anyway ask you to review those policies. The one on federal compliance, the first one is just, it's just that. It's a lot of federal bureaucracy. I'm sure it's important, and KASB attorneys have done the best they can do to make it meaningful. The rest of the stuff are relatively minor changes. Anyway, it puts the administrators on the same evaluation cycles as teachers, and that'd make a big difference on how they do their jobs. Anyway, you've got another month to look at those, or 3 weeks, I guess, before the next meeting. The next thing, and I appreciate the opportunity to bring this to you tonight, and I see a couple folks in the audience from the Dodge City Public Library, and this is an opportunity for us to extend a partnership with the public library and take a look over the next 4 or 5 months at the potential for moving the resources that are currently housed in the Kansas Heritage Center to the Dodge City Public Library. We have in your packet on page 65 and 66 a draft memorandum of understanding that'll go to the library board, I believe it's tomorrow evening, that establishes a task force for the next 3 months to look at the feasibility of transferring assets, resources, so on and so forth, to a Kansas Heritage Center to be established at the Dodge City Public Library. As you know, this organization, the Heritage Center, has a 50-year history as part of Dodge City Public Schools, and is one of probably very few resources anywhere in the country that has the kind of collection that it has. It's too valuable not to continue, but it also needs to be more accessible than what it is. And its purpose, while a very important purpose, is not necessarily directly tied to the mission of the school district. It goes beyond that. It's the heritage of the Old West and of Dodge City itself. And so the public library is interested in looking at this with us, and we are interested in partnering with them to see if it's feasible to make this happen. So we're asking permission tonight to enter into the memorandum of agreement, which would let us over the next 3 or 4 months explore the feasibility and come back to you all and to come back to their board with a recommendation sometime as early as October this year about how to proceed with a transfer if both sides feel it's feasible. I don't know what that might include yet, but that's what the purpose for the task force is, to identify the issues and come up with some recommendations. So would encourage your approval of this memorandum so we can get the process started.
And just a side note, if we approve this, they're asking that we have a Board of Education member on that group. So if one of you would like to serve on that, if you'd let me know, and I can pass that along.
Asking for a board member, an administrative type position, and at least one staffer from each entity to serve on this task force.
I think this is exciting. I think this is very exciting, and it's just kind of, it sounds perfect to me. So I hope the task force, proves that out, that it is a very good thing to do with the Heritage Center.
Absolutely.
So we need a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement to get a process begun.
Okay, I make a motion for approval.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Tammy and a second by Jeff. All in favor? 6-0.